Thank you for joining After 40. I'm so excited to introduce Peter Samuelson today. He's quite an amazing guy. I have the pleasure and privilege of knowing him. He has more than five philanthropic charities that he runs, but he has a really interesting history. And I'm really excited for him to share with you today all about his generative nature and where that started. So welcome, Peter.
Well, thank you for having me. I think it's under false pretenses. I didn't realize it was called over 40, but I guess looking at my high number above that, 72, I guess I am over 40. Okay, you win.
Well, welcome. I'm so thrilled you're here today. And I'm excited to tell everyone that you have been a film producer since the 1970s. You have had a really amazing career. You come from like film royalty as well. And you didn't just do that. You've done a lot more than that. So I don't know that people know the other side of you and what you've done. Can you tell me a little bit about what it was like growing up in film?
Well, my grandfather was a silent film producer 100 years ago in the UK. My dad was the chairman of the British Academy. He actually saved it when it was going bust, and he ran a big company renting camera grip and electrical equipment out to people. So I did. I grew up with that a little bit in my blood, but I grew up with something else that I got from my parents, which is I cannot tell you how many Sundays I had to sit at the dining room table licking envelopes, appealing for money from donors for some charity, whatever they were working on that month. I was the free labor that helped with envelope stamps and sealing. And I think from almost the beginning of my life, I realized our people, tikkun olam, and I realized that in our family, certainly, as you sow, so shall you reap. And what I hadn't realized was that the toolkit that you develop pretty much by gaining experience and trial and error as a film producer, um, you know, every year is a new project. What is the idea? Is this idea worthy of a year of my life? Where's the money going to come from? Who's directing it? Who's starring in it? Who's distributing it? Is it any good? How do we make it better? What's the marketing campaign? I realized it is the identical toolkit to repetitively start charities and keep them alive, to nurture them until, that moment when you teach your kid, or now these days, your grandkid, to ride a two-wheel bicycle. When you take the training wheels off, there's that delicious moment where they're saying, keep hanging on, grandpa, don't let go, don't let go. And you're actually 100 feet away because they just pedaled themselves without falling over. So there is that blessed moment when your non-profit offspring can pedal by their own steam, but you are the entrepreneur, and no greater privilege than to address a hoary old problem that no one's cracked, and to dare. That's the other thing about film producers. We have chutzpah. We never say, I can't possibly justify spending $40 million to tell this story. No, we never say that. We say, absolutely, it's going to be the best investment you ever made. Of course, you should release the film widely because we believe in our own merchandise. And so, soup to nuts, that's what I started doing. 1983, my cousin introduced me to a dying boy, Sean Honorati, 11 years old. And she had met him in a meet and greet in the Children's Hospital in London. And I remember her phoning me and saying, I've done a terrible thing. I asked this little boy what would make him happy. And he said, oh, that's easy. I want to go to Disneyland. And she said, he's in a hospital bed. He has an IV. He has a tube up his nose. He doesn't have any hair. I think I've done a terrible thing. What do we do? And I said, well, we'll have to bring him to Disneyland, won't we? And we, cut a long story short, we flew him and his mum to LA. Everybody, including the cousin, moved into my apartment. I was back in my single days, and we spent 2 weeks doing everything you almost certainly shouldn't do with a seriously ill child. He had a wonderful time. His mum, Brenda, had a wonderful time. And they went home, and little Sean died. And it was very sad. But we also, the stunning thing was that we realized it had been relatively straightforward to do it. You know, if you're a film producer, it's the other thing. You're never daunted by anything. If, you know, you bang into a wall, you just back up and take another run at it. So we had managed to do it, no skin off our noses. He had had an amazing time. His mum had enjoyed her son in the last period of his life, enjoying himself. And she was left with the pictures of him enjoying himself. So it was in my head. It went around and around. And I did what film producers do. I called a meeting. I stood at the end of the table and I said, you know, we just did this. I think we could do it a few times a year. We could find seriously ill kids and we'll just make them happy. What's not to like? And everybody nodded. And my business partner back in the day put in the initial funding, and then we raised more money, and we trained up volunteers kind of by trial and error in how to grant happiness, not just to the seriously ill child, but we understood from the very beginning, it's a gift to the family. The parents of a seriously ill child are usually having warfare with each other because all they've ever talked about for a year and a half is how ill their child is, and is she going to make it or is he going to make it? And suddenly in comes happiness. And it's also great for the siblings. Fascinating, the psychology of it. Younger siblings are jealous because they see the ill kid getting all the attention, and older siblings have guilt because they think, how did he get cancer and I didn't? Doesn't seem right. So that was number one. And then I got an introduction to Steven Spielberg, and I went in and said, you are the maestro of IP, of content. I've got distribution in Starlight, but I think we could make amazing, video, interactive, this and that. Remember, this was like the early 90s. There wasn't an internet. Al Gore was just inventing it. and he said, great, what do you want me to do? What will I be? And I said, it's a new charity. You're the chairman, and we will put a board together and we'll raise some money and we'll get on with it. He said, well, we can't raise money unless I give you money. The chairman has to give. And I said, well, that would be wonderful. Thank you, Stephen. And he said, well, what do you think I should give? And I said, I'm not going to. God did not put me on the earth to tell Steven Spielberg what he should donate to charity. I would say you should do something moderately uncomfortable. And he said, no, give me a number. And I said, I'm not giving you a number. And he said, well, then we're going to be here a long time because you can't leave unless you give me a number. And I said, okay. And I don't even know where the number came from. I said, $2.5 million, complete fabrication. Had no idea how we would spend it yet, or there was no budget. There wasn't even an entity. But that was the functional beginning of the Starbright Foundation. Stephen chaired. We got General Schwarzkopf to be the fundraising chair, and it was a redoubtable trio. And we turned on the world's first fully interactive social network. Long before MySpace and Facebook and this and that, we had navigable avatars in 1995.
Wow.
I looked up Mark Zuckerberg. When we started Starbright World, Mark Zuckerberg was 11 years old. So we were there first. But we did ours for charity, which was how we got.
Recipients? Who were the recipients of it?
Teenage, seriously ill kids in laminar flow rooms in hospitals across the country. unable to go to school, unable to play with their friends, unable to find community. And this connected them with each other and with their schoolroom and so on, and gave them back a relationship with their families who they had only seen in spacesuits or through a window, that kind of thing. So that was number two. And then number three, 1999, I realized that the last great civil rights struggle that never began was for civil rights for foster kids. They'll never march. They don't vote. They haven't got any money. They don't even know that they're in a bad place. They'll never glue themselves to the wall. And it's the most broken thing you ever investigated. And I did a lot of research, and I came to the conclusion that 450,000 foster kids in the United States, this is completely ridiculously bad. And it repeats generationally, because it's kind of like it goes down families. Not always. There are always, bright exceptions who break the mold. But there's a lot of roughly half generational repetition. So I asked myself, well, what do we do? And I thought, we have to do education. They have a shitty education because they're poor on top of everything else. So they go to the poor kids' school where they have not very good teaching. And so I asked myself, where would there be role models and excellent teaching and just an environment of achievement? And if the role models could be, 4 or 6 years older than the teenagers, that'd be a really good thing. And if any of them had ever been in foster care but had made good and gone to university, that would be a very good thing as well. And of course, the answer is a university, a great big university. So to this day, the chancellor of UCLA thinks that I went there because it was the best university on the West Coast. Little does he know, I decided to start with him because it was just up the road and the parking is very difficult. And I thought I could just walk. That'd be good. And he'll probably say no, but I'll start with him. No skin off my nose. So I pitched him on allowing me to house, educate, and encourage high school aged foster kids in the middle of his campus for the 4 years of high school, years 9, 10, 11, and 12. And he said yes. And we then raised all the money in 5 meetings, and we brought the first 30 kids in, and we just got on with it. And a few weeks in, we said, this is like watching flowers grow. This is extraordinary. Turns out there's nothing the matter with the kids. If you give them a curriculum of academics and life skills and family and unconditional love and an arm around the shoulder, and only you can move your feet up the ladder. If you fall off, we promise we will put you back on the ladder. Don't worry about it. You will not be kicked out. Actions have consequences, but one of them for you will not be being expelled. Get with the program, do your homework. Here are your tutors. Here are the youth coaches. Here's the director. There's the swimming pool. Here's the basketball court. It's been the most extraordinary thing. We started at UCLA. We now have 14 of these academies in the United States, all the way from LA, our original one, the pilot, all the way to the University of Miami and everything in the middle, or a lot in the middle. And we're up to number 5 in the United Kingdom, including, I'm happy to say, Cambridge University, where I went to school. I was the scaredy cat scholarship kid. And the idea that I actually got to walk across the grass end of last year in front of the Christopher Wren chapel built in the 17th century, and then shake hands with the master when we signed the MOU between First Star and Emmanuel College, Cambridge. And first intake will be the summer of next year. So we're working on setting it all up now. And then after that, University College London, ranked number 1 in the allegedly impartial newspaper ranking of, what here would be the Ivies, over there it's called the Russell Group. But when you walk into University College London, there's a big sign over your head that says ranked #1 in the UK. So that's first star. And then the other one, well, there are two, but I'll only tell you about one. EDAR stands for Everyone Deserves a Roof. I came out of a restaurant and a unhoused guy sort of poked his hand, palm up, into my chest, and I gave him $5 and kind of went off in disarray just to get away from him to the parking garage. And I was incandescently angry with myself. I thought to myself, this man has nothing. I have everything. What the hell? What? I'm scared of him. So I decided, as my penance for having, run away in disarray, that I would interview unhoused people. If all else fails, lean into it. So I did lean into it. I did 65 interviews on weekends on my bicycle. And I asked two broad sets of questions. How'd you get money and where do you sleep at night? And an old lady on Santa Monica Boulevard near the San Diego freeway, she said, come with me, I'll show you. And she took me on the Caltrans, maintenance land next to the freeway. And behind the bushes, there was a gigantic cardboard box with a crappy piece of blue plastic over the top. And it had been raining and it stank and it was awful. And she said, this is where I sleep at night. This is my home. And on the side of the box, it said in foot-high letters, Sub-Zero. And I thought, there's the epiphany.
Yeah.
There is God talking to me. We got the refrigerator. This old lady got the box. And how far apart do we separately go to bed at night? 2 miles? It's ridiculous. What's wrong? The golden rule. What's unjust? What's out of whack here? So initially I was going to raise money and build 100-bed facility. And I had it all priced out. And it comes to about $50,000 per bed generated. That doesn't pay to run it. It just pays to buy the land, build the building, kit it out. $50,000 a bed, $5 million for 100 beds. But then I did a little bit more research, and in the census back then, it said that there were roughly 80,000 unhoused people in the county of LA. That's $4 billion to house them. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I have no idea how you raise $1 billion. I certainly don't know how you raise that kind of money. So I thought, well, you don't give up when you're a film producer. If the door is locked, you go around the back, see if there might be a window open. And what I did is I came up with in my head, but I couldn't draw it because I have the spatial design ability of a newt. I came up with a thing which didn't have a name, where in the daytime, functionally, it would be like a shopping cart. But the big difference would be at night, completely different shape, let the front down, let the back down. And now you've got a 7-foot-long mattressed cot inside a covering with 2 windows and 2 doors. And I thought, well, someone has to design stuff in this city. And I found the Pasadena Arts Center College of Design. I went and met with Dean Korshek. I said, if I put up a prize, I'm big on competitions. If I put up a prize, would you let me do that? He said, I certainly would. It needs a name. What do you want to call it? And I said, I don't know. What should we call it? And between the two of us, we dreamed up the acronym EDAR. EDAR. So it's edar.org. And it stands for Everyone Deserves a Roof. There's about 300 people so far sleeping in them every night. We're about to go, God help us, into the new manufacturing run with improvements, because we did focus groups with the users. I don't think anyone ever asked them for advice on how to make a thing better. But they love it, and they told us, could we have a little shelf? Could we do this? Could it have a drawer underneath? And so on and so forth. That's EDAR. And the last one is called Aspire, the Academy for Social Purpose in Responsible Entertainment. And what that is functionally is the teaching it's more than this, but the core is making it possible for students, undergrads, in a university who are not in the film school or the media school to learn videography. How do you do that? How do you write the little script? How do you make it? How do you edit it? Where do you put it? What's the distribution? Pretty much, they're taught how to make a PowerPoint. They're taught how to use Excel and the rest of the suite. This extends that into audiovisual persuasion, because in the end, narrative and storytelling is how you make anything happen. So that's my suite of charities. I'd like to say I'm the dad of them. That's it. I'm out of charities.
That's charities that you have. So, I mean, truly, Peter, people don't understand why people want to give. And I hear the passion in your voice, and it comes from the heart, I can tell. But tell me, how do you feel about each of your charities that you have? What does that do for you? Do you start it and then do you forget it? Do
No,
you
no, no,
on
no,
to it?
no.
What does it do
I'm
for you?
still involved with all of them. I love the moment when, like taking off the training wheels, I don't have to be the executive chairman anymore, and someone else can run the thing. But I remain on the boards. I am running First Star as part of the C-suite, hands-on in both countries, UK, US. I'm definitely running EDAR. If I could ever get the new prototype out of the factory, we might even have hundreds more of them on the streets. And I kind of advise on Aspire, and I'll do whatever works. Why do I do it? Well, the best class I teach in First Star to teenage ninth graders is called Random Acts of Kindness and Pay It Forward. And it's two 90-minute classes. In the first one, I say, okay, three people walk along a sidewalk. There's an old lady in rags lying asleep face down. One stops and puts $5 under her arm and doesn't wake her up. The next one puts $5 and wakes her up to make sure that she sees who gave it to her. And the third one just keeps on walking and looks the other way. Why do they each do that? Which leads to a conversation about the golden rule. It's in 190 religious scriptures in the whole world, the idea of social justice, of equity, of our hearts being offended if we see something out of whack, like an old lady in a cardboard box, where you feel in your heart that you should lift it up and achieve social justice, social equity. And then I say, so it's in all these scriptures. Does that mean that an atheist wouldn't stop and give the woman $5? And they say, no, they would. They might feel the same emotion. And that leads to a conversation about the second law of thermodynamics, which I'm sure you remember it well, Deborah. It's the one it's about entropy. If you don't apply external energy to any system, it will, over time, left to its own devices, end up as random chaos. If you don't oil the motor, it will eventually stop turning around. If you don't nurture a family, it'll fall to bits. If you don't take care of your planet, you'll have global warming, etc. So then I say, you want to come to this class tomorrow because something amazing is going to happen. Each of you, and I'm speaking, let's say, to 30, 14-year-olds, each of you is going to receive $100. And there's a stunned silence. And then usually somebody says, we're all getting $100 each. And I say, no, you are getting $100 that you have to give away. Each of you are going to start tomorrow writing an essay, 300, 350 words, to whom or to what you wish $100 to go. And then we're going to do it. And you're going to come with, you can give it to a charity, you can give it to the homeless guy who needs shoes. And then 2-3 weeks later, you're going to go back and we're going to look together and see, did it work? Philanthropy doesn't always work. Did he buy the shoes or did he buy a bottle of wild turkey? What happened? It's every kid in that class grows about an inch in the class because it gives them agency. They thought they were the most hard done by person they ever met. And it exposes them to people who are infinitely worth. And there are such sweet things. My mum is in prison, but I want to put it into her account so she can buy better toiletries because they have really terrible shampoo and it isn't good for her. And I want to do that. Or how about this one? I'm adding a few dollars of my own because it takes $30 down at the pound for them not to euthanize a dog. And I'm going to save 4 dogs. And the reason I'm going to do that is last time I was down there, I looked into the eyes of a puppy that had been very badly beaten. And I saw my own eyes because I was very badly beaten as well. So I'm saving 4 puppies, Jose. So I think as they are an inch taller after 2 of those classes, I think I'm several feet taller because of Starlight, Starbright, First Star, EDAR, Aspire. I think it's my legacy. I think and I hope and I pray it will last long after me. I find at my extreme age now, I'm really trying to build things that will endure, that are sustainable, where someone other than me is able to find the funding for them in an ongoing way. First Star has an endowment coming together at the moment of $50 million. Nothing the matter with that. If you had said to me at the beginning of Starlight, and one day you will have a charity that will create an endowment of $50 million, throwing off $2.5 million a year and still keeping the principal, I would have said, yeah, and pigs will fly, because I was worried about where's the next $1,000 coming from. But, you know, you put one foot in front of the other. If the step is too high to climb, because it's like a cliff face, you take your pickaxe and you break it down into 10 little steps, bite-sized chunks, and you just do it. It's what I want written on my tombstone. The hilarity at my funeral, I think, will be, maybe I should have it while I'm still alive. The hilarity is that all of these charities think that they are my only child, each of them, because they've actually never really met. And they will, I imagine, come together and say, who the hell are all these other people? We thought he was ours. You know, it's like having children, and you have to say to your little children, I love you most. And then you say to the next one, I love you best. And you have to have all of them being your favorite. And it's one of the things I learned from my dad. When we were at his funeral, everybody made a speech and said, I'm happy to share my special relationship with my grandpa, because they all, honest to God, thought that they were like the chosen one, the apple of his eye, because that was one of his bits of genius, was he made them feel that way. You know, my brothers spoke and I listened to them and I thought, who the hell are you? You know, come on, I'm my dad's son. So that's
what
why.
A beautiful legacy that your grandfather passed to your parents and then to you, now you to the kids in the foster care. I mean, you were teaching them philanthropy. I mean, it just is continuing and continuing. It's beautiful. You have a legacy truly with that.
Well, so there's I have a book coming out next year, and a pretty eminent and very successful documentary filmmaker wants to do a documentary where each chapter of the book is accompanied by a 5 to 7 minute video.
Wow.
Which is about what is in that chapter, because I've written it.
Tell me about the book. What's the name of the book?
It used to be called The Meaning of Life, asterisk, and then at the bottom, the real one, not Monty Python.
I was thinking of Monty Python. That's funny.
And then my publisher the editor explained to me that no one in the demographic of millennial and younger, Gen Z, have ever heard of Monty Python, which seems to me a dreadful lacking in their lives. So it's now called Finding Happy. It is targeted at underprivileged kids between, I would say, 14 and 25. And it is a self-help book where each chapter has a title which expresses what's going to be taught. It uses insanities from my life, both good, bad, and indifferent, to teach the lesson. And then it ends up with points for reflection and maybe for a bit of homework. So, like, you might have one where the title is, what is a good risk? What is a bad risk? How do you tell the difference? Mm-hmm. And then I talk about, ridiculous risks that I took, which I should never. I had no, I was an idiot, a hothead. I should never have climbed down the pipe shaft in the middle of the night in Marrakesh in the hotel to rescue a kitten, and then realized that I didn't have the upper body strength to get back up to where I came from. I thought, I'll just have to die in the Hotel Mamounia, Marrakesh. So stuff like that, but also good risks that I took, daring to do. If you just sit in the dark in the middle of the envelope of your world of the possible and you poke with a pencil, if you don't ever go to the edge and the point of the pencil goes through, you don't know where the edge is. You're just sitting there like an idiot in the middle with all of this potential. So the thing to do is to aggressively poke. And if you do go through, well, then back up and go off in another direction. I will never be a concert pianist. This I know. So anyway, the book and the accompanying documentary, it'll be a full-length documentary, but also in pieces. It can accompany the chapters. Haven't quite worked out, like the book on tape. Could you click at the end of each chapter and it would take you to the video? Don't know. But there are so many adventures in the screen trade. I've made 27 films and I've had so many bonkers things happen and strange, peculiar people that I've had to deal with. So we can use clips from the films as well.
That's great.
I won't just talk about the fact that an early job was when I was the production manager on The Return of the Pink Panther. I would have to go around the set at 6:00 in the morning and say, as you know, Peter Sellers won't work if anyone is wearing green. Do you mind going to wardrobe and change your socks? Because otherwise he won't get out of the car. That kind of thing. But also we can show a clip from the film.
Lovely.
So
love it.
That's it. I have 4 kids. They are all doing things that are so splendid and worthy. I think in the end, other than maybe starting charities and realizing they survived, and that they have a life of their own, even after you took off the training wheels, I think the other great victory in life, as you well know, is your kids, your grandkids, your nieces, your nephews, realizing that you did not mess up the lives of those you raised is an eternal comfort. And we had a Passover Seder with 28 people here at our 2 tables next to each other, and everybody read and this and that. I have one Haggadah that's in German, and it's like a running annual thing because the cover is not in German, it's in English. It's a publisher's mistake. Oh. And we don't tell anybody until I say, would you like to read? And the whole damn thing is in German. So all good. And that's what I got. There's a website. If anybody wants to contact me, most of the great things that have happened in my life is because someone dared to contact me. And I am very busy, but I just somehow deal with it. So I'm Peter at Samuelson, Samuelson.la. And Peter at Samuelson.la will even reply if you say anything even remotely helpful. And I believe in Venn diagrams. You bring yours, I got mine. Let's see if there's a bit of an overlap. And the website, the sort of master website that leads to all the others, because there are too many of them, is Samuelson.la, not .com, .la. Deborah, I've talked too much.
No, you haven't. And every single time I get the pleasure of speaking with you, I learn something new. And I really value that. And the thing that I value most about you is that you're really such a generative individual. You're always generating something from yourself and putting it out into the world for others to use and to share and to learn from. And you described today much more than just philanthropy in terms of being generative, which is, how you care for others without expecting anything in return. But it's beautiful to see how much you get from all of it. And I thank you for joining me today.
My pleasure. And if any of this resonated for anyone, you reach out. Let me see if I can help you a little bit.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.